Welcome, critters! I'm Claire Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plotlines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. This particular episode is about Campaign 1, Episode 41, I believe, Part 1. And joining me today is Petall.
Hello.
So the icebreaker that I found for today is, what was your worst job ever?
Oh, my worst job ever. I'd say probably my first job. I was working serving food at an old folks home and it the managers were terrible. First of all, I was never ever emailed my schedule. I got my schedule through a friend who worked there because they just despite providing my email multiple times for them to actually send me my schedule, they never actually did send it directly to me. So it was a good thing I had a friend working there because otherwise I would not have known my hours. Um, Secondly, they scheduled me on days that I said that I was completely unavailable to work. And then thirdly, at some point they decided that they didn't want me working there anymore. So they just took me off the schedule and didn't tell me, and I had to phone and be like, "Hey, why haven't I been scheduled in a little while?" And they just didn't tell me. And and my friend who worked there said that they had spoken to like the other staff that I was just the same as any other news. They were then nobody could figure out why they didn't want me working there. It was just a nightmare from start to finish. I was only there a brief time, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think customer service or just service jobs in particular are often the worst jobs,
Yeah.
especially when you have bad managers.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. I had a no good, very bad year in 2013 where I had a slew of just awful jobs. But I think the one that takes the cake was I was desperate for a job at this point. I would have taken like anything that anyone would have given me. And so I went to the mall one day and I was like, all right, any store that's hiring, I'm applying, whatever. And so I'm walking around the mall and you know those kiosks that sit like in the middle of the hallways?
Yeah.
There was one that sells like hair straighteners and the girl like called me over and she was like, let me play with your hair. And she was like, why are you here today? And I was like, I'm here to find a job. And she was like, well, we're hiring. And so, me never having owned a hair straightener in my entire life up until that point, never even having used a hair straightener up until my entire time, was hired to sell hair straighteners at a kiosk in the mall.
Wow.
And it was a commission-based job, but the key was that you had to earn enough commission to out earn what you would earn for your hourly wage for your shift, right? Then you would start earning commission on top of
Hmm.
whatever you're set hourly, but you weren't paid commission for anything under your hourly shift wage.
Wow.
And so the manager would then schedule us for like 9 hour shifts so that it was really hard to out earn the shift amount, right?
Yeah.
And, it was me standing by myself at a kiosk in the middle of the mall trying to convince people to like A, approach me, and B, let me play with their hair, and C, then sell them products.
Wow. That sounds like a terrible
It
job.
was awful. And so I guess being the smartest one out of the bunch, quickly discovered that it was a lot easier to sell the hair products more so than the hair straighteners to people because the hair
Mm.
straighteners were like $200 a pop, right? And so it was really hard to like sell that ad hoc to people just wandering
And
around.
people only need one hair straightener. They're
Yeah,
not going to be buying another one if they already have one.
right. And so I found out quickly that I could easily sell like shampoo, conditioner, hair oil, like all of the products that we sold in addition to like those are very easy sells. And I
Hmm.
found out that if I just like focused on selling those items all throughout my shift, I could easily out earn the shift amount and then start earning commission. And so I quickly just started selling like 20 bottles of shampoo during my shift,
Nice.
or like 20 bottles of hair oil, and it was really good hair oil and really good shampoo. And so people were happy with the product. But then like my manager ended up getting mad at me because I wasn't pushing hair straightener.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, it was awful. There was this one time I was on my lunch break eating my sad Subway sandwich at the kiosk, and this boy walked up to me, and he was just, I could tell he was full of shit from like the moment he approached me. And he was like, "So tell me about your hair straighteners. I'm thinking about buying one for my girlfriend." And I was like, "All right." So I put on like my sales voice, and I'm like, "How can I help you, sir?" And he's asking me all these dumb questions. He's like, "Can your hair straighteners cook pizza?" And at that point, I was like, my sales mask dropped, and I was like, did you seriously walk over here, interrupt my lunch break to ask me if hair straighteners could cook pizza? And he just like
Wow.
went beet red and stammered and then just like ran away. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. I was like, back to my sad Subway sandwich. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Yeah. And it was only minimum wage in Kentucky at the time, which was 7.25 an hour. So,
Yikes.
yeah. No bad, no good, very bad year.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. I also collected urine samples for a pain management clinic that year.
Wow.
And
What a
that
what
doesn't
a
even top the worst job I've ever had.
yeah. Wow.
Uh, well, please join us as we embark on this exciting adventure in story analysis and self-reflection in order to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. I myself have seen a large swath of humans in my time. And I love to bring that awareness and knowledge to this podcast. So, as always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well. So please comment, like, subscribe below. And ready? All right, let's dive in. As we open this episode, there was a coordinated attack from four chromatic dragons on the city of Amon, and it is now in ruins. So, Vox Machina is housing a bunch of refugees in their partially collapsed keep after attempting to fight off an ancient white dragon. Alora has shown up with her ally from days past, Drake, and they have laid out the situation to her, much to her horror. So this episode begins with Alora urging the party to locate their allies and bring them together so that they can plan how to free the city. The party also discusses how exactly they could sneak into the city and find out who survived. And they discuss how they could maybe pick off the dragons one by one, perhaps isolating the others in the cities that they have also taken over. Laura reveals that there are two bastions of knowledge that might hold insight into what could be the undoing of what is now named the Chroma Conclave. Records of battles between powerful entities are held there. Some of these books remain in Vasselheim, the only city to survive over the massive wars that have happened, and a few have gotten their way into the Cobalt Reserve, which is a well-fortified library in Western. Laura had planned to go there previously, and so she's still hoping to do that while Vox Machina gathers their still living friends in Amon. Keyleth asks if they should go to Vasselheim, and Alora says it might be worthwhile, especially since Keyleth says it's close to Pyra, which they know has been also destroyed. Grog suggests sending in a spy to feed them information from Thordak. And Keyleth also raises the issue that there must have been a spy in the Council of Teldore in order to orchestrate the attack in the first place. They had gathered the entire upper echelon of the city in one place to listen to Uriel's speech, and they were all wiped out in one blow when the dragons hit. So Keyleth then attempts to go calm the refugees, and Drake casts a spell that turns both himself and Alora into sparks of electricity. Then they streak away. And Keyleth then casts Commune with Nature and learns that Gilmore is alive but very weak and in the direction of Abadar's Promenade, which is where his shop is located. She cannot sense Sovereign Uriel, so they decide the first order of business is locating and ascertaining the condition of Gilmore, but they need to take a long rest first. After an uneasy sleep, the party gathers once again and leaves the keep via their secret tunnel. Before they do, Vex offers Jarrett 300 gold to help take care of the refugees, but he refuses the additional 100 for himself. They move cautiously through the tunnel leading to the city and emerge in a chained outhouse at the end of a deserted alley. Vax picks the lock, and Keyleth polymorphs Trinket into a red panda so that he can negotiate the ladder? Where did that word come from? So he can climb the ladder? Who knows where negotiate came from?
Navigate the ladder.
Navigate, that's probably what I meant. Moving stealthily along the edges of the city wall, they all head towards Gilmore's shop and they see the full extent of the devastation and casualties left by the dragon's attack. A cloaked figure does approach them as they go, and the half orc begins speaking in thieves' cant to the twins, telling the party that he is a member of the clasp named Garthok. They invite him to join them and ask him to help them go to Gilmore's, find the way to Gilmore's. Along the way, they encounter corpses, looters, and frightened survivors. And Grog asks Vax if he still thinks that whatever is inside the skull is worse than the destruction around them. Vax responds that he thinks it would be equally worse. When they reach the ruins of Gilmore's glorious goods, there are about 10 looters going through the rubble. Outraged, Vax tells them to get out, and the party draws their weapons threateningly, but the looters refuse and draw their own swords, mentioning that it's their third time back here to scavenge. One of them throws a dagger, and they initiate combat. The looters are not well armored, but there are a lot of them, and so they do use pack tactics. And the party is never really in real danger as they fight, but they do take some damage, and it takes a while to dispatch all of them. Every time Grog uses Craven Edge to wound an enemy who fails a Constitution save, Grog also gains a point of strength. And Scanlan uses Dominate Person on a dwarf and convinces him to empty his pockets of all the loot they'd taken while Keyleth goes minxy. Finally, Scanlan intimidates the last remaining combatant into surrendering, and Vax takes him around the corner and knocks him out, leaving only Scanlan's still dominated dwarf there. The dwarf tells the party that they have given everything to the dragon. As long as they give him what's important and valuable, he'll keep them alive and protect them, is what he says. The dragon is in the cloud top, and folks apparently line up to bring him all of their treasures. The looters have put their pickings in a secret spot so that they can take it to the dragon, and the dwarf tells them where it is. As the mind control ends, they knock him out and tie him up. Vex has been investigating the rubble while this conversation is going on, and she has found no signs of life anywhere, but she does notice that one of the floor tiles is actually a hidden door. So the party gathers around it, and that's where they break for the episode. So, what do we think of this first half?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of planning, there's a lot of searching for Gilmore. It kind of seems like a kind of in between kind of section. There's not a lot of major moments, but it's still like the important planning and also Gilmore is important.
I mean, I was struck by how much time and effort Matt put into describing the destruction of
Yeah.
Mon as they went. Um, it's really obvious that he's trying to drive home the emotional impact of what happened because it is a theater of the mind that they're dealing with here too.
Hmm.
And they can't see the destruction tangibly. So I think Matt does spend a lot of time describing it. Like I got chills at certain points when he was talking.
Yeah. And it is quite devastating to see like a place that they go often, like Gilmore's store, like specifically too, and to see it in such a bad space. Like not only being looted currently, but having been looted several times before, still no sign of Gilmore. It just also I think it also drives home with the familiarity of Gilmore's. like focusing in on that.
I mean, it hasn't even been 12 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it broke my heart. Something that I didn't include the summary is like when they see the city gate covered in ice and like all of the people who are just like frozen in place, like they were in the courtyard of the keep, and how most of the parties like we can't even stop for them, but Vex and Keyleth are
Mm,
like we have to at least try.
yeah. Yeah. So much death and destruction, so many lives lost.
I mean, it really puts their individual worries and conflicts and challenges into perspective.
Absolutely. It really does.
Like when Vex was offering Jarrett the money, they were like, "Who are you? Like, why are you giving him money? Like, what's going on here?"
Yeah, yeah. It's really nothing like a disaster to really show to not even to show what's important because of course the personal problems are important as well, but to like shift priorities and it's interesting to see what gets put on the back burner and how people react. It's interesting because a lot of people say that like you see people's true colors in
Mm-hmm.
Crisis. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's true. I think you're just seeing people in crisis and it's different than it is in like normal times because
Mm.
all of a sudden you're in survival mode.
I mean, the brain makes weird decisions when the amygdala is driving, that's for sure.
Exactly.
I was also struck by Alora's response to everything because I saw so many parallels between Alora taking responsibility for what's happening and Keyleth taking responsibility for what's happening. And like arguably, I think Alora is, I don't want to say more entitled to taking responsibility, but has a more developed history and reason for taking responsibility
Mm-hmm.
than Keyleth. But I'm wondering if this is where Keyleth is learning her leadership skills from too, is because although Alora is completely freaked out and like Matt does emphasize how much like guilt is, showing on her expression as she leaves, um, she doesn't lash out at other people. She doesn't let that affect her reasoning as she's
Mm-hmm.
talking to them. She's like doing the whole self-management, self-emotional regulation thing that I think Keyleth hasn't yet gotten to in her leadership journey.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting to have those parallels for sure and to see kind of like an example of what Keyleth could be versus what she is now, and kind of have that as an image to strive towards.
Yeah, because she definitely, like we talked about this in the last few podcasts, is like how much Keyleth is struggling to even make any decisions moving forward or like do have any sort of control over her behavior in this situation.
Exactly.
And I think Grog is also making a lot of out of character statements and suggestions and
Yes.
like
Yes.
how much of it is Grog and how much of it is Travis ultimately at the end of the day.
And how much of it is Craven Edge is the question too.
That's an excellent question. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Because, I
Wow.
mean, we saw it in the combat, the way that the sword was reacting and giving him strength. And we know that Craven Edge has been talking to him, and the party is already suspicious. But how much of a hold does Craven Edge have on Grog's mind at this point?
That's such an interesting point because that's nothing that's explicitly discussed either. Hmm. Because me and Atlas spent a lot of time in the last podcast talking about how it was uncharacteristic of Grog to even like want to use the skull in this
Hmm.
whole scenario. Like I think it was a lot more Travis oriented, but
But
bringing
there's also even goes back like the whole reason why he took the skull in the first place was because Craven Edge spoke to him about it. And yes, a lot of it is also Travis and Travis liking to push the big red button.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
there's also that push from Craven Edge. Like
yeah.
that gave the character motivation for Travis to follow.
Interesting. Because Grog is the one that suggests sending a spy in to feed them information from Thordak. And Grog also makes that comment about, like, do you think that, whatever is inside the skull is worse than this destruction? And um, now you are making me wonder if that's the sword talking instead of Grog and or Travis.
I wonder what Craven Edge's intelligence score is what I'm wondering. And how much does that modify? Like, obviously, there's not an actual, like, it didn't boost his score in, like, the game, but, like, if Craven Edge is controlling his mind a bit, like, wouldn't that give him a boost of intelligence if Craven Edge is smarter than he is?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at its wiki page right now, and it's like alignment is chaotic evil. It's a sentient item. Every language that it speaks is attuned to its wielder, and it has telepathy with its current and all former wielders. Oh, here are the stats. Intelligence 16. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
things to think about.
Yeah, its charisma is 18.
Yeah,
Wisdom is 12. Interesting. Interesting. So if it has telepathy with all current and former wielders, does that mean there's like brain share going on?
maybe. Maybe
Mm.
I'm just thinking about how I like just knowing, and I part of it too comes from having such a clear vision of the animated series when it's more clear. Like obviously Craven Edge talks in the, but like just it makes me think just how much is he being influenced by Craven Edge at this point. It's had time to take hold. He's already been feeding it. He feeds it more this episode.
Hmm. 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 A really good point. I'm gonna have to chew on that one for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to track that to see if Grog's suggestions and statements continue to be this pointed
Hmm.
as we go forward with the Craven Edge, and does it change once Craven Edge is taken away?
Something to keep track of for future episodes.
Yeah, interesting. But I think the real impact of this first half is the whole emphasizing the destruction of Amon.
Absolutely.
Um, because that's what's underlining all of their responses as well
Hmm.
to what's going on. Like, Vax is pissed. Vex is, I think, sad for sure, but I think she also feels a little lost with what's going
Yeah.
on. I think that's ultimately why she's throwing money at Jared.
It is kind of one of her main tactics that she
She's
knows
like,
how to
fix the
use.
problem.
She knows how to like use her charisma and she knows how to throw money at things and she knows how to shoot things with an arrow.
Hmm.
Those are her
Hmm.
main techniques.
And Percy is his mind is going like he's strategizing because he also speaks asks about the orb beneath Whitestone when they're talking to Alora,
Hmm.
and thinking about how they could possibly utilize that in their fight against the dragons as well. But they have yet figured out how the orb works, what the orb is, or any sort of plan for how to actually harness its power.
Yeah. You know, it makes me think, you bringing up Whitestone, it does make me think of how recently they saw the destruction of Whitestone
Yeah, I
and
was
then
thinking of that
how
too.
yet another home is
Yeah,
completely destroyed, even more so than Whitestone. Whitestone, it was hard, but they fixed it. And
yeah,
I know we talked at length about what it was like for them to, or particularly for Percy, but what it was like to come into Whitestone and see it so destroyed and hopeless. And then this is on a whole other magnitude.
yeah, yeah. It's on a whole nother level, and they don't even get the benefit of seeing life this time around. Like
Hmm.
at least in Whitestone, they saw people barely surviving, like just doing the best that they can in the rough circumstances that they found themselves in. But the vast majority of the people that they pass in Amman are corpses in this scenario.
And the people who aren't corpses are working for the dragons.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I think it's definitely a hit to their confidence and the hit to their temporary sense of stability that they may have gained for themselves through the whole
Hmm.
Whitestone arc.
Yeah, because before all this happened, like things were going great. They had saved Whitestone. They had regained their standing with Uriel, and now all that is gone, like wiped away like that.
Yeah, like what's the point of being respected by the Council of Teldor if there is no Council of Teldor?
Exactly. Exactly. And that just makes me think of Vex, because Vex has always kind of wanted power in a way and social recognition and all of these things. And now, once again, everything that she has worked for in her life, or everything that not everything she values in her life, because obviously Vox Machina is still
Mhm.
around and there are survivors, but once again, it's all taken away by a dragon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's cutting deep. It's cutting
Yeah,
deep.
it is.
Well, my mind immediately went to personal experiences, or at least real world examples. Do you have any that are coming to mind?
Um, Yeah, I'm just thinking of, I mean, it's hard not to think about the state of the world
Hmm.
right now,
Yep.
um, with how things are in the United States and
Yep. Hmm.
Canada. It has an election on Monday, and
Mm.
so we'll see how things go there and whether we manage to keep out Polyev from becoming a pseudo Trump. Uh, But yeah, there's just kind of that feeling of destruction of so much that people have fought for and worked for, just crumbling.
Hmm. Yeah, my mind immediately went to all of the natural disasters that we've been experiencing in the last few years. They have
Yeah,
been
that too.
they've been increasing in strength, they've been increasing in frequency and number, and whole swaths of land and cities and townships are literally being wiped off the planet in
Hmm.
a lot of these disasters. And it just, I think it's all kind of mixing together into this pot of shit we're dealing with right now. And I think we're seeing a lot of different reactions from everyone as a result, too.
Yeah. Yeah. People generally are not at their best when they're stressed out and in survival mode and losing everything. There are some people that like it drives them, but people in general are not at their best when they're in survival mode because their whole focus is on them. Because in some ways it needs to be, and in other ways it's hard to focus on anything else.
Yeah, it honestly makes me think of, to make it very specific and personal to me, I work in a local school district and we've dealt with a lot of extreme weather this school
Mm.
year. So we had a bomb cyclone that came in at the end of the fall season last year. And then we also had some massive snowfall that happened in February of this year. And it was really interesting to see how all of my coworkers responded to the various challenges and obstacles that were put into our path for doing our job on a
Yeah.
day-to-day basis. Like for the bomb cyclone, there were several coworkers, like at least half a dozen, who didn't have power for like 8 days after the bomb cyclone. And like one of my coworkers was actually driving his family to the local Amazon warehouse so that they could use their shower facilities
Wow.
because no one had running water, no one had electricity, so they would like charge their phones and shower at the Amazon warehouse where one of them had employee access. Um, and some people opened their houses to others, some people went to, stay with. But there was this one day where most of the district was still out of power, but they insisted on still having schools open for the day
Oh,
because it was some kids' only chance to have warmth and food.
that's a good point. Yeah, it's a
And
very good
so
point.
we had kids come in where they're like, yep, our entire fridges have gone bad because we have no power and no way to get power. And so they would come to school because it was their only chance to have power and warmth and food.
Hmm.
And it was wild.
Yeah.
And like, it's just interesting how different people reacted differently to the situations because there were some people who were pissed, especially in the snow. Like, so many people were ranting that day. So many people were ranting. Um, because the school district refused to cancel school that day.
Wow.
Um, and it was very dangerous out there with all the snow that was going on because
Hmm.
the Pacific Northwest is one of those areas where we don't get a lot of snow. And so when it happens, we're not really prepared for it. And so
Yeah, it's like that where I am too.
we don't have a lot of plows and we're technically not allowed to use salt because it pollutes the
You're
Puget.
not allowed to use salt.
Now we're not allowed to use salt.
Wow.
So people can use sand, and so sand is used to like create grit on the roads and sidewalks and stuff like that. And still people do buy salt in some small quantities, but as a whole, like, the snow plows can't spread salt,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So we're more or less screwed because it's also very hilly here.
Yeah,
We have
that
a
would.
lot of hills in this area. So, it's been chaotic with those weather things going on, and it's also very interesting to see how different personalities come into play.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But I mean, we all react to it in different ways. That's the thing. Like, I had a lot of fun in the snow, honestly.
I do enjoy snow.
I
Yes.
was like, this is fun. I'm sliding all over the place, but I'm having a blast.
Yeah,
I didn't hit anything important.
that's good. Whenever it snows, my dad likes to take the car out and just like
Drift.
do donuts in a parking lot or something and just slide around.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up in the Midwest, and so like driving in the snow was one of my requisites for, growing up and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um it's been interesting. Anything we're being called to do?
I mean, it's hard specifically in this part because at this point we're just seeing the destruction. But I think in the way that they do step in and defend Gilmore's shop from the looters, I
Yeah.
think there's always, even if we can't reverse the big things, we can't stop natural disasters. It's gonna take a whole lot to stop Trump and fascism as a whole from rising over the world. There's always small things we can do that make a difference in individuals' lives.
Yes. Yes. I mean, using the very small example of the bomb cyclone, like once I learned that there were many coworkers of mine who still did not have power and running water, I was like, y'all, just come over to my house. Like,
Yeah.
I only lost power for like literally an hour throughout the entire ordeal where I'm located. And so I wasn't affected at all by whatever went on. Um, a lot of people were not as fortunate. And so I was like, please come charge your phones. Like I
Hmm.
have plenty to share. But that's like, small scale, like you said, in terms of the whole political environment of what's going on right now. But
But small scale, it makes a difference in individuals' lives. And
it
it's not
does.
like we shouldn't just do small scale stuff. There's big scale battles to fight as well. But the small scale stuff is important too. I think it's really important. Like, you don't want to just focus on the big scale stuff and miss out on the small scale stuff because there are immediate needs today and now. And it just, like, it reminds me of the work I do at the
Mm,
youth shelter.
mm,
Like, we're not, as a youth shelter, going to fix the problem of addiction and make everybody's lives better. There's a lot of youth who come through who we are able to help and help them find more stable living situations, but sometimes there are youth that no matter how much we try, we just can't. But that doesn't mean that the like nights or weeks that we provide in the shelter don't make a difference. And in those individual days, even for those cases that don't end the way that we would hope. And uh the if the people do keep struggling, it's still those are still nights that they're not out on the streets, and that makes a difference for that person for that night.
absolutely. Absolutely. I will underline that for sure because the small things do add up to the big things at the end of the day. Like,
Hmm.
I've been having a very interesting conversation with my best friend lately because we both participated in the Women's March back in 2017. Was that the big? I think that was
I don't
2017.
remember.
It was the big International Women's March, and in Seattle, it drew a crowd of like 750,000 people. Like we had a really big turnout for that day. And um, my best friend has been feeling pretty down lately because she feels like it didn't have any effect. Like all of the protesting that we did, all of the protesting that happened with BLM in 2020, all of the protesting that's happening right now. Like we're having major protests literally every weekend in the United States right now. And she's feeling pretty frustrated and discouraged and angry, honestly, that she doesn't feel like she's seen any tangible results or changes because of all the protesting. So, like, why even bother? I think is where she's kind of
Hmm.
fallen into these days, which not to turn, I don't think she'd ever be apathetic about it, but I think she's losing her will to fight, which I think is very valid these days. I think a lot of people
Yeah.
are feeling that right now. Um, and I have been trying to frame the results of those types of protests and movements and behaviors and actions in a way where it's not like tangible law changes. Like we haven't seen tangible laws go into
Mm-hmm.
effect because of those things, but the visibility has increased. The awareness of the issues have increased. The amount of people
Yeah.
talking about this stuff has increased. The amount of small organizations coming together to help contribute to these larger causes have increased. Even small businesses producing products to support and spread awareness of these causes has increased. And so I think it's more of a morale booster sometimes to
Mm-hmm.
participate, whether you consider these actions small or large or medium or, somewhere in between, is that I think that's one thing that we've said on this podcast multiple times now is that even just talking about it is worthwhile.
Exactly.
And having the space to talk about it is worthwhile because there might be somewhere, somehow, someone out there who feels alone in their thoughts and feelings in this moment.
Yeah.
And if one of us can reach them and help them feel not so alone, then that's the difference that matters.
Yeah. Even if our actions only have a difference on one life, that's still one life that's made a difference. Like, that's made a difference in, like, that's helped that one person. And that's valuable when you think about how much a life is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I talk about this all the time when it comes to like social media followings and social media, like all of the vanity metrics that people chase after these days, views, likes, comments, shares, reposts, that kind of stuff. Um, if you have 100 people like your post, if you have 100 people see your post, that's still like more people that I can fit in my apartment.
Yeah, imagine like a room of 100 people. That's a lot of people, and yet 100 is such a small number in the
Yeah.
view of the like social media world. But like imagine like fitting 100 people in a room.
Yeah. Like I don't know if I could fit 100 people in my apartment, honestly.
Yeah.
So, moral of the story, small things matter, people matter, you matter.
You matter.
Dun 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 dun. We did it.
We did it.
I mean, that brings me back to like, why was Garthok included in this episode?
Hmm.
Like I think he was included just so that they could have this guest come on, right?
Yeah.
James Charles Miller, I think his name is, if I'm remembering correctly. But in the grand scheme of the plot and the narrative, what does his purpose serve?
Yeah.
And it just might be that he's the one person that felt alone and Vox Machina found him.
Exactly.
Hmm? Maybe I'm being way too philosophical about this and reading things where they shouldn't go, but
This is the show for that. That's what we do here. Our purpose in this podcast is to read between the lines and pull at whatever meaning we can.
I mean, isn't that the purpose of life, honestly? Like, I honestly hate when people say there's meaning in everything because I think it's the other way around where we make meaning in everything.
Hmm.
So, what meaning do you want to make out of this?
Exactly.
And the meaning that I want to make out of this is that Garthok was a lonely boy. Vox Machina found him, and he no longer was lonely boy.
Yeah, exactly.
And Vox Machina was no longer lonely Vox Machina. And they came together and fought a bunch of looters. And I think they may or may not feel better about themselves now as a result.
Exactly. Because they felt like they're doing something, and they did do something, and they did make a difference, even if it's not driving Thordak out yet.
The little things.
The little things.
Anything else you want to add before we start wrapping up?
I can't think of anything.
Now I have Blink 182 in my head. This is powerful stuff that we're talking about. An audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and insights and stories with us as well. We'd love to know how episodes like these have impacted you in your own lives. Maybe you've never even given that much thought to episodes like these, like we do in this podcast, but
I know there are certainly times that I come into an episode and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm gonna talk about for what we watched. And then we start talking, and I'm like, there we go. We found meaning.
we found meaning, we made meaning,
We made
and
meaning.
that is the point. How do you harness what happens to you in a meaningful, productive way?
Yeah.
Well, special thanks to Petal for joining me on this
Thanks for
meaning
having me.
making, joining adventure that we're on.
It's good to be here.
Next time, we'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 41, Part 2, and joining me will be Petal again. So I'm so excited for that. As always, I'm looking for more co-hosts and guests. So if you're interested in rambling until we find or create meaning, let me know. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe below, follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR. I will update it one of these days, I promise. Until next time, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be free, and be the chaotic good you wish to see in the world. Take care, guys.